so I can be a broken record because staff and the school committee have been out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they'll be at Hathaway tomorrow. I want to thank my fellow members for their time, their effort. This is especially right now, it's a very thankless job, and I appreciate all their efforts. As well, I want to thank the administration who has been with us for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. They too have families, but Jeff's kids are now riding. They've tied up Jeff's wife, and they're taking the car, and now they're going to take control. So, when we sit here night after night, it has great impact upon all facets of our lives, and I deeply appreciate the time and the commitment. One last statement. Maybe two last statements, but I was at John Underwood's talk. I apologize publicly that this overlaps the parental presentation of Mr. Underwood this evening at the high school. There was no intent when we actually scheduled these. But John Underwood spoke to half the student population, I suppose, this morning at 8:30, and then the other half at 9:50. I felt his last four slides were just the quintessential statement of, but he was excellent. He spoke of choices that kids make, whether it be what they fill their bodies with, soda or drugs, alcohol, what have you, and in the effects it had on the brain and on their physical being. It was excellent. My daughter was in the audience when I was there. She said, I actually learned something. And I said, well, how about the people around you? She said, well, they thought he was lying. So I guess you get all types. But it was an excellent presentation. I think it was well worth having him here for the day. And I hope there are plenty of parents up there at 7 o'clock. Okay. As we go through these budget sessions, I will say something that I said last night. I respect the principals advocating for their programming, their peers, their colleagues. I respect Mr. Davidson advocating for his capital needs for his building. But there is a reality that faces us in balancing our expenses to our revenue. And we have a 3-year plan. We are trying to work around how we balance reductions in expenses such that they meet our revenue. And it's not easy for us. We will listen to you. We will respect what you're saying. It doesn't change the fact that we need to figure out where we can save $650,000. So, that being said, is there any public comment, lady? Okay. We jump right into the business agenda number A, Portsmouth Middle School presentation. Mr. Emerald.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee. This is, as you mentioned earlier, a very difficult process for us to go through. We've gone through various iterations of looking more closely and reflectively about what is Portsmouth Middle School and how we can best manage under some of these very difficult potential cuts that are happening down the road. But maybe we can start with some of the good things that are happening at Portsmouth Middle School as we have, well, one of the things that's been very difficult, and some of the teachers are here today, is that we have a very young staff. We probably have the youngest staff in the district. We have the largest span, but 31 of the layoff letters came to the middle school, and it has been very difficult for many of the young teachers to keep that inspiration, that enthusiasm for teaching and learning in light of the fact that they've put 110% of themselves into what they're doing, and they want to stay. And we're hoping that through some process, they will be able to continue to work with students next year, maybe here, maybe somewhere else, but continue to work in the vocation that they've chosen. So it's very hard as a principal to be able to see some of that because we know that our teachers lead first with their heart and then with their mind. And that's what makes a great teacher, somebody who puts their heart into what they do and then their mind to develop strategies and tactics to get students to produce their best. And we are in the people business. And I think I want to start off my presentation with that because that's what we do. We serve students, we serve people. And many of the things that when I look at our a chosen profession, I model it very much after the medical model. That sometimes, yes, you have to have equipment, you have to have technology, you have to have good PD in order to be able to service the population that you're servicing. But it's no different with the education model. Those are very important. It leads to one of our first curriculum initiatives. We're continuing to transition to the Common Core. This is really year 3 for us. We've been looking and transitioning different curriculum areas to the Common Core. That takes professional development. That takes time during our school day. Sometimes professional development during the summer, as Mr. Schoonover organized this summer. That's important for us to continue to make sure that we have common standards. We are looking at transitioning our curriculum, our computer curriculum, to be more in line with the advent of programming. I think that's a very important thing that students need to do. The students coming in today are much more advanced in the areas of keyboarding because they're introducing that at earlier levels. We need to revamp our 2 curriculum classes in 6th and 7th grade so that they finish at least at one point with some programming that's going to be vital for them to be able to be more proficient in robotics or beyond when they get to high school. I think that's the future of the job market out there, and I think that we can be more competitive if we reform our computer curriculum at the middle school level. We transition to the next generation science standards. I know Jeff has been working with Lisa Pita at the middle school to make sure that's a reality. I know that's going to be a major step, but it's one of the requirements I'm really excited about that I think is new to the science curriculum is the facet of applications. So I think one of the things that we want to do is continue to offer opportunities for students to apply their science knowledge, either through robotics or through other areas. I think that's very important. And we're also doing curriculum mapping throughout all the content areas. The high school is probably more advanced at that than we are. We need to catch up to that as we start to get a grasp of the Common Core, the new resource materials that we've gotten in math, in the grammar, in social studies, and be able to map that out so that we're not overlapping the different grades. And we're transitioning properly from the elementary to the high school. It's always one of our themes, to make sure that we're contiguous. In instruction, we're still working on differentiated instruction. I think that's important. We know middle school child develops at different rates. Some students become more abstract than others. Doesn't mean that they're smarter or less smart. It just means that people grow at different rates. And we need to adjust for that in the heterogeneous classroom. And that's why differentiated instruction techniques are so important. And we have coaches to be able to exercise that, to be able to facilitate that. And I just want to understand, I want to make it clear that if we're going to be doing lab classrooms, the elementary principal spoke about it last night. We've done it before at the middle school under the direction of our coaches. We really are moving away from that coaches model. We're eliminating those positions at the different levels of the district. So that's going to be more the responsibility of the administration to make sure that they're organizing and modeling and opening opportunities for teachers to go see each other that are really effective teachers and be able to have critical conversations about how they're using differentiated instruction in their classroom. So it's going to be a different model, but it's going to be done more so now through administration instead of coaches. One of the things that we did this year And Emily, I know you brought up the IEP issues in terms of the gaps. One of the things that we did this year for the first time that I can recall in 41 years at the middle school is we're providing actual time in our schedule called intervention extension time. That's about 2 hours every week where students who are falling behind can get individual instruction, sometimes by a special educator, sometimes by an interventionist, sometimes by a regular classroom teacher. For the other students, some of them are getting enrichment support in terms of their science fair projects. They're getting enrichment in terms of current events. They're getting opportunities to do conferences with their teachers. So we really are carving out that time to make sure everybody has access to either enrichment or opportunities to get individualized instruction within the school day. We've tried before school, we've tried after school, but unfortunately those times that are most effective are really during the school day. And we did that this year, and unfortunately next year we're not going to see how effective we are on the kneecap because we're not doing kneecap. And the only way we have measurements are through the use of Scantron tests. We can see how many kids are moving up in the course of the 3 times that we give it throughout the course of the year. So I'm really excited about that, and our teachers have really been utilizing that time really wisely. And now we're moving into, in terms of technology, we've really spattered some of the classrooms with whiteboard technology. I know that our teachers are anxious to see more of that happen. And I'm hoping that when we have capital improvement plans, if that's part of the process, that be considered, because I think it's a key initiative in terms of improving and keeping kids connected to current methodologies and instruction. In terms of assessment, one of the major differences in the last 25 years at the middle level is we are inundated with assessments more than ever before. But we have to be prepared. That's a great way to understand if the kids are getting it. We have the park instruction coming next year. We are very focused, and I think the teachers here would agree with me, that we are very focused on data. When the students aren't getting it, we have data to show whether or not, oops, I think I missed it. The teachers are very keen on making sure if these certain number of students aren't getting this concept, they use their ISI blocks or instructional times during that week, and they regroup kids to support those kids throughout the course of the week. And I think it's been really effective at targeting those kids that don't get it. I think that's very important. And I think we're going to see, we continue on that path, we're going to continue to see huge gains in many areas. We're also having 2 committees that are teacher-led. One is the standards-based report carding. As you know, we have 4th grade is standards-based on the level of 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is based on a rubric, and it's very elementary-based. In grades 5 through 8, it's the traditional letter grade report carding. We have a committee of teachers representing grades 4 through 8 that are looking at the benefits, positives and negatives of both. We're going to be visiting Gaudet Middle School, which is all standards-based report carding. We're going to be visiting Feinstein or Coventry Middle School, which is, they're progressive in the area of standards-based report carding, and also Cumberland. So we have a team that's going to be separating, going to visit other schools, gathering more information, and see what the best fit is for our students to produce obviously more achievement on the part of our students. Our teachers are working very diligently in terms of our SLOs. It's very empirically based. SLOs are student learning outcomes. It's based on having students meet certain targets. And the teachers have been really wonderful in terms of embracing that, looking at what the weaknesses are so they can motivate student learning. And also one of the things that we've done, I think we've done very well in probably the last 4 years, is progress monitoring. Because of the RTI program is so strong at the middle school, anytime a student falls below the 38th percentile in their performance, they are reviewed for a response to intervention. They might not be failing. They might even get 3s on their kneecaps. But if they fall under a certain test, on the Scantron test, they're automatically reviewed for a response to intervention. And that's where they get those individualized help and instruction. So again, our goal is to provide individualized level of instruction for students by using assessment, by having a good solid curriculum, and a real solid instructional format for the students. And that is one of the things that's important. And later on you'll see that we've added more money into professional development, because if we're eliminating coaches that are doing that as an embedded PD to support teachers, we still need to have money in the PD account for teachers to be able to be released during the day, to be able to get together and maybe even get a consultant to come in and help with different strategies, or have them visit other schools sometimes, or go to conferences. We still need to make sure that we're up to date in terms of all those current methodologies. In terms of our enrollment, I think you'll probably see that next year, and this was when we had the projections for enrollment, next year we're actually going to be the biggest school in the district. We're going to have more students than high school and the 2 elementary schools combined. We have a big range. So that's going to be something that that's important for us to consider when we're looking at expenditure for funds and the different things. We have a lot of students with a lot of varying needs, and we need to make sure that we support them. Because middle school is about exploration. It's about having as many different opportunities to explore and express your different intelligences as much as possible. If we restrict those too much, then we don't give students who might be good at band, or might be good at chorus, or might be good at foods and nutrition, or might be good at computers or robotics, and not giving those students a chance to experiment with that, we're not going to give them a chance to maybe select that when they get to high school. So we have to consider those options as well. But as you can see, this year we had a little bit of a bubble in 6th grade. We had quite a few students that came all of a sudden out of the woodwork to bump up our 6th grade enrollment. There's a lot of rumors as to why. I don't know. I hear rumors, I'm sure, like you do. But there's a larger number than the rest of the school. And next year, though, those numbers are going to go down back to 182 students.
What are those rumors? Because I have a 6th grader.
I think they're actually positive rumors. I think there are some parents that feel that we offer a real good program, and maybe some of the parochial schools maybe are not doing as good a job at that level to provide a solid program for their kids. So many of them are looking at the middle school as a viable option. The next slide is, again, the most important asset we have is our teachers. And this is something that's very difficult to look at. And we have to really go back and reflect over and over again to see what would have the least impact on our students. But all of this has an impact on our students. But what would be the least impact for next year? We're asking for a reduction in I'm not agreeing with it, but this is in order to fulfill the district's mandate, a reduction in 2 special ed teachers. Our special ed population has gone down in the last 3 years. We restructured a lot of the special ed support, but the number of students have just gone down. I will, at this time, if Letty, you can help me pass this out. This gives us an understanding of where we were 3 years ago and what the numbers are projected to be last year. And even with 2 FTE cuts, we're still below the levels of student to teacher ratio of 2 years ago. You recognize that we have there are 2 sources of special educators. There are local special educators that we control in our budget, and there are regional special educators that the region controls in their budget. We're recommending 2 cuts in our budget. And if you see the numbers there in terms of what we project for next year, the student to teacher ratio is still 11.3 as compared to 2 years ago. Now, is that optimal?
That includes cuts.
That includes cuts. That's not optimal. We still utilize many of our, in the old mandate from the Newport County Special Ed region is, thou shalt not use special educators to educate regular ed children. Well, that's not been our mantra at the middle school. We use special educators to educate all children because we use a co-teaching model. And even with students who are not RTI, who are not in special ed, but require some support so they stay out of special ed, teachers often use those times, those blocks. Special ed teachers will take a group of special ed and non-special ed students and work on those skills that they are deficient in. Because just because you're not a special ed child doesn't mean you're not be a deficient in a particular skill, whether it be grammar, vocabulary, comprehension, math skills, multiplication, whatever it may be. If you're deficient in a skill, we feel like you need special support. So it's still going to hurt. And if there's a way to recover that, again, I'd be open to that. The next position is basically one of based on just reduction of numbers. In 6th grade, we're going from 211 students to 180 students. So I wouldn't recommend a full reduction in staff. We really want to motivate and grow our program. I would recommend a 0.8 reduction in staff, transferring a 0.2 to a graphic arts program in 6th grade. Because if we're eliminating foods and nutrition, we're shorting the amount of offerings during that 6th grade time. So we have to have an alternative. And I think a good alternative that students really are motivated by, and it's going to help them in the future, is the area of computers and graphics. There's so much to be learned out there. This is an opportunity for those kids really to excel and to really get more of an exploration, particularly at the 6th grade level. And maybe throughout the middle school experience, they might develop an interest and maybe even go deeper into that area. An instructional coach, like I said, I think our district is going away from the coaching model. And we have a 0.5 coach. We actually have a 1.0 person, half instructional interventionist and half coach, but half of that was funded by the federal government. So for me to tell you it's a 1.0 cut is disingenuous because half of it was funded by the federal government. So it's not really a true cut for you. So that's why we're only including a 0.5 as a coach. But in reality, we're losing a whole body, a whole person. Foods and nutrition, I believe that for some students, their motivation for coming to school is not math, and it's not ELA, it's not science. It's number one reason is probably because they wouldn't be with their friends. Number two reason is they might like to participate in an intramural sport or a music club or a chess program or something that really connects with them. And for some students, it's going to robotics, where they can then go to robotics after school, or go to a foods and nutrition program because they have a certain love for cooking, or to develop food science materials, and they go beyond. We even had a club at one time where they met after school to extend on what they learned during the class. It's not mandated by the state, but it's one of those things that motivates kids to want to come to school and to feel good about being in school. And we also have a severe diabetes problem in this country, an obesity problem. If we don't take that time, in our foods and nutrition program, it's taught like a lab. It's a science lab. They learn a lot about food nutrition, proper food preparation, and it teaches them about what you're taking into your body, as you mentioned earlier. What are the healthy things that you can do to keep your body functioning properly? And that is an important thing. And it's being reduced from a full-time position to a 0.4 position. And to continue the emphasis of the applications of science, I think it'd be wise to take a 0.2 of that savings, 0.2 of that foods and nutrition, and converting it into a robotics program into 5th grade. We had record numbers of kids who participated in 4th and 5th grade robotics clubs. I think we had 4 altogether, 4 teams, so that's like 40 kids, and they're all enthusiastic about doing it. This is something that obviously is driving them to want to participate after school and to really get excited about it. Well, then I think we also need to push the robotics down from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to 5th grade so they can stay interested and stay motivated, and we can build our program from a 5 through 8 perspective. And the skills that they're learning is tremendous. The programming, the critical thinking is just awesome. And I think that's something we want to continue. And then the last cut is an interventionist position. It's 0.3 of that position. At this point, it's getting very difficult to restructure any more positions from an empirical point of view. Empirically, I would have a hard time with reducing that interventionist position. But this is our mandate that we have to come forward with proper number of positions. Interventionist positions are important. They're highly skilled teachers that are versatile to support students that are trying to help them close the gap. So they're critical in terms of us being able to meet our mission to educate all children. And that is, that's probably the one that I have the hardest time with. In terms of controllable expenses, I don't want to disappoint you. We're pretty level funded. We're actually a little bit less than last year. The biggest increase you can see is in the professional development fund. If we don't have coaches, then we need to put more money into maybe offering teachers opportunities to meet together during the day to come up with some work that they can provide consistency across their grade level. We might need to have teachers go to the collaborative for some training, so they might have to put more subs into the schedule so that they can go and see learn from a presenter or a group of presenters to learn more about their craft. So that is an increase. Printing has been a decrease in terms of communication. We're using a lot more electronic communication. And really, it's just probably across the board. We're not using a lot of letterheads or things of that nature. Anytime we communicate with parents, it's mostly through electronics. Library books, we're all having to take. That's a big line item. Books are expensive, but we've been very aggressive when we transition to 4th and 5th grade to the middle school to add more books to our library. And we've been doing a really good job aggressively of translating some of the older books that really have not had a lot of circulation and maybe is outdated and sometimes inaccurate. And moving in new books that make sense for our school. And especially adding a lot of low-level, readers from 4th and 5th grade. We didn't translate a lot of the books forward. We actually bought a lot of the new books for the 4th and 5th grade students. They're at their level. And I think we've done I'm feeling comfortable for this year that we've been so aggressive in purchasing so many new books. And I want to say it's probably close to the last 3 years, 40 to 45,000 between all different sources of book materials that the school committee has supported. That I think if we take a 1-year cut, it's not going to be insurmountable. I wouldn't want to see this continue forever, but 1-year cut I think we can overcome. Our supplies, I think if we're going to move forward with the STEAM initiative, our teachers are doing a wonderful job providing a lot of applications to the art world, but one of the things that's gone up is our supplies. We had two, I can't believe how much the clay has gone up to be able to have all the students participate and create an artifact for their class. And that takes some funds. And that's one of the funds I think we're going to increasing. Piano repairs, we have a new vendor that's going to, we pay him one fee and he comes in as many times as he needs to come and tune the pianos, and that saves some money. There's very strong research in middle school that shows the more activities that you offer students, there's a high correlation to their performance level in school. So anytime a student has an idea about a club or activity, and they change depending on the student's ideas, we have to support them. Just this year with robotics, the entry fees blew me out of the water. I had to move funds from here, there, and everywhere just to support these kids' interests. If we're going to continue to provide after-school activities and be able to do it effectively and hit a whole range of interests that students might have, I needed to increase the fees that it takes to participate in mock trial, participate in robotics, which are new programs this year for clubs. We had a decrease in we decreased office supplies and audiovisual equipment. We have, we're looking at ways to provide office supplies for students in classrooms that are more economical, and in some cases students have to bring in their own materials. If we're going to be using sticky notes to do different types of activities in the classroom, we have to ask the students if they can bring in their own sticky notes. We can't keep providing them the same ones all the time, and when we have scissors, we try to give a class set at the beginning of the year and hold the students more accountable if they lose them or if they misuse them in some way. So we're going to try to create some economies by holding the students more accountable for the materials that they use. So this next couple of pages are basically the budget. As you can see, it's a small savings. I wish there was more that we can do in this area, but we really have some set costs that in order for our school to function, we need to be able to utilize them. There are set fees and costs to curriculum and materials in order to continue to have access to what students need. And that is my presentation. If you have any questions, I can entertain them at this time.
Mr. Amaral, with this, I know it's not your recommendation, but with what you've outlined here, how are the house leader positions affected? Is your planning that they will still be, those positions will still be next year? They'll still be there?
Well, I think that's a bigger picture than just middle school. It's house leaders and department heads and what they do and how we utilize that time to support teaching and learning has a lot to do with whether or not they're involved in the evaluatory process. If they're involved in providing feedback to teachers on how they're doing in the classroom, that takes time. That takes time to go in, have a pre-conference, have a meeting, go in and observe their craft, their teaching, and then give them feedback afterwards. That requires a lot of planning. It requires planning and actual embedded time. And to me, that's considered part of professional development. If that continues, then I don't see any change in need for a change in the structure of the house leader. However, if that role is being changed or altered, I don't think that you need that much time if they're not going to go in and support teachers and give them critical feedback about how they're doing. But this proposal does not take into consideration a change in the FTEs associated with the house leader positions.
Just so that I understand, in the co-curricular or the special, 4 through 8 all has art, music, computers, phys ed, and health, right? So those are given to all grades.
No. You said art, yes. Music, yes. What was the third one?
Computers?
Computers is offered as a half-year course in grades 6 and 7. It's not part of the unified arts rotation anymore.
Okay.
It used to be, but now they get a half year in 6th grade and a half a year, like 90 days in 7th grade. It's part of the regular curriculum.
But nothing in 4, 5, or 8?
No, not in 4. In 5, I'm recommending that we do robotics. In 6, we do robotics. 7 and 8, we do robotics.
Right. And then they all have phys ed and health.
Yes.
Some amount of it.
Did we
And then robotics would be 5 through 8?
Yes, if this
And then
recommendation goes through.
foods and nutrition would be 7.
7 and
Graphic arts, 6 only.
8. Yes.
And then foreign language, 8 only.
Foreign language is not part of unified arts, it's part of the regular
Right,
curriculum.
but I was just trying to think what they had.
One of the drawbacks to every single one of these proposals. One of them is that we're very sensitive about transitions for 4th graders. In other words, when they go to unified arts, we want them to stay together. They have a hard time moving independently. So, we have to, and I don't know how this is going to play, and we've been working this through mentally to see how we picture, but by taking foods and nutrition out of the 4th grade curriculum, instead of students having 3 out of 6 days of phys ed, they'll probably go back to the minimum of 2 days of phys ed, and then rotate a health component in another fashion, which means it might not be able to travel as groups. But we'll have to work around that to make sure they're comfortable in how we organize them.
Okay. And then, so I guess what I get a little bit confused with is the partial positions. So if you have a .4 foods and nutrition teacher, that means that the job that was a full-time job now becomes a 40% job?
Yes. And the full-time job, it still becomes a 40% job. .2 of that position goes to support robotics in 5th grade. So your real only savings is a .4 in that position.
Yeah, but I was just thinking in terms of how it affects teachers. Does that mean you'd have like a half-time foods and nutrition teacher or something?
You'd have a .4, a 40% teacher.
So they would like 2-3 days a week or whatever that is.
They probably do every day of the week, but only for 2 hours each day.
And then the graphic arts, would that, I mean, can you get somebody for a .2 position?
I think the graphic arts can be either we currently have some segment of that in 8th grade, and it's taught by our art teacher. Because when you teach graphic arts, it's usually under the realm of either a general certification area or art. So I would imagine that particular course could be taught by the arts teacher who has a background in graphic arts.
So they would go from a point something to
I think
plus .2.
our art teacher, I believe, is .7, so they might, if this works out, they can actually go to .9.
And if we were able to save something here, what do you feel is I know it's hard, it's all, but what would you say is kind of the most critical?
I think the most versatile position here that will support students in terms of closing the gap that we have, and I really believe that with the ISI blocks that the teachers and the students have endorsed, we're going to see some closing of the gap. It would be the interventions. They're versatile. They work with both special ed students and non-special ed. They can support in multiple grades based on the need of the students.
Thank you.
Thank you. The administrative recommendation was that was one FTE on special education. Where's the second FTE in local special ed? How many local special ed teachers do we have in the middle school?
2.
And what grades do they specialize in right now?
They're working in grades 4 and 7, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the reapportionment would be necessarily in those grades. I've worked with the special ed region to look at our staffing levels, how many students need to have written language goals, how many have math goals, and reorganize a distribution based on where the needs are for special ed students.
So you feel comfortable that that 0.2 will, that 2.0 FTE could be covered internally or by special?
But I would caution the committee that...
Without giving the region more exposure.
Right. But I will caution the committee that over the course of the year, things can change. You might have 10 students that come in over the summer that are military or from other places that might have IEPs that can change the landscape. But you can also have 10 less students. That's why it's always...
Well, we're well aware we're trying to get to a base level of the budget, and then obviously we're not. We're still, we're still here.
I'm comfortable today.
We're still here in September.
Yes, but if the numbers change, obviously.
All right. Have you had discussion with the administration about the idea of using creative options as a backfill to some of the social and emotional needs in the middle school?
I don't think that particular option came up in my conversations with Mrs. Krager, Mrs. Saris, Mrs. Krager, but I do think they're looking at the services in the region first as a way to try to save costs instead of sending students outside of the region at a much higher cost.
What's Creative Option?
It's a private program that has been successfully used in other districts. I don't think we have any right now. But Middletown uses it. And
Middletown has a person at the middle school and a person at the high school right now from Creative Options. It's someone who's paid hourly through Creative Options, and they specialize in creating positive behavior programs. So it's not really academic interventionist, but more on the behavior side of things.
So
really supporting social emotional support.
As we take these local special ed people out, we can still attempt to backfill some of the social and emotional needs within the school. And we can actually use federal dollars that we have that we must use. That would not be supplanting, but it would be monies that are not in our budget, but must be used anyhow.
I also need to, I'm sure in your conversations with the regional board, we really need to, at a very early level, look to have a very strong criteria for teacher assistants. Because in reality, when you have teacher assistants that are working with students individually, sometimes it's very necessary, but sometimes through scheduling or moving students that maybe one teacher assistant can support 2 students or 3, that is a better method overall, because if you're looking at the same dollars and you're looking at 2 teacher assistants, it's almost the equivalent of having 1 teacher, a certified teacher.
I mean, while the special education is not per se in your Portsmouth Middle School budget, it certainly is in our budget, and it represents 20% of our costs. Now, your point is well taken. The problem is the IEP probably dictates that that student have a teacher assistant.
Yes, it does.
And to reopen IEPs is another hornet's
But
nest.
prospectively, going forward and having policies that are more based on what we want to see, and if we follow those policies and they're looking at the criteria for determining whether or not a student needs a personal assistant, in the long term would help us be able to fund a better educational program for all students. So I think the lack of a criteria, and sometimes, and I think you articulated this earlier, that the region is 1 layer removed from our school district. Sometimes it's very difficult to have them see the picture from our perspective, our lens.
We're certainly trying our best.
Yes, I know that.
Let me go to house leaders. To me, we have this incredible opportunity now, if they're not doing assessment, or they're supporting assessment, but they're not, let's say, the front line of assessment, that we have now an entire staff. We have a group of individuals that should be the penultimate support mechanism for all throughout, whether it be at the house leader level in the high school, or at department chair level at the high school and the house leaders at the middle school. I mean, when you see these changes from the coaching model to the lab environment, do you envision using your house leaders in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do that now. Mrs. Smith is working. Just today we had a conversation about how we can motivate some professional development. She's leading that for our science teachers. For our grammar portion, we've had already several professional development days with Mrs. Ernest, has led that program to try to make some positive change. And in our social studies curriculum, we're trying really hard to make sure there's no duplicity in the social studies curriculum, and we're moving that agenda forward. We're very fortunate at the middle school that all 3 of our house leaders, not only are house leaders, but they're also trained as principals. So they have not only the background to be curriculum leaders, but school leaders. So we're very fortunate now. The way that we recruit and we support our teachers is that they've gone back and taken coursework and involved in different projects that are going to make them more proficient at that. So I don't think we have a problem with that at all. And we're going to continue to utilize house leaders to support teachers in the development of our curriculum.
So as we move forward, and let's say there's some demand as we take some of the local special ed people out, and there's demand for IEP reviews, we can use our house leaders maybe a little bit more aggressively in that regard to backfill that need?
Yes.
Okay. We're well aware from our discussions with the IT group of 30 interactive whiteboards being needed at the middle school. It's almost embarrassing, but we'll have to figure out how we attack that. And I think it's choices on how we use what is some kind of I won't say limited, but a reasoned sum of capital funds.
Right.
2 things. Food and nutrition. I hear you, but we also globally potentially are looking to take food and nutrition out of the district. What benefit would it have if there was not a food and nutrition program in the high school to have it in the middle school?
It complements our health curriculum. We have a limited number, we have the minimum number of days that the students go to phys ed. It's 100 minutes a week by law. We give them 100 minutes. Anything that we can do to complement the phys ed program, particularly in 7th and 8th, when they're already making a lot of choices for themselves, this is a complement to the health curriculum in the middle school. If the reason I kept the 7th and 8th grade is I think that is where they're most vulnerable and they start becoming independent thinkers and doers. I want to be able to spend time in the health curriculum with our health teachers to talk about body choices, drug awareness, drug decisions, making decisions about your body.
But that's not unique to food and nutrition. You also have a health curriculum.
Right, and I don't think we have enough time in our health curriculum. So the foods and nutrition is a good complement to that they're talking about nutrition and healthy choices in life. So really, I see the foods and nutrition program in 7th and 8th grade as an extension of our health curriculum. And it's not just cooking for those kids. It's about making, these are the decisions that you have when you have fast food. This is what happens when you have too much cholesterol. This is what happens when you have too many sugars you can't digest in your body. That's one less thing that the health curriculum has to deal with the 16 times that they eat in the course of the year, and they can focus in on those issues better if the food and nutrition program focuses on nutrition.
Out of the 4 FTEs that's proposed, you're actually asking us to actually cut 3.6.
Actually, no, 4.0.
How do you then give back 0.2 to graphic arts and 0.2 to robotics?
If you look at that chart.
2, let's see, 9. I have 4 FTEs here.
Yeah, there's 4 FTEs.
Well, 4 FTEs, and then you're giving back 0.2 and 0.2.
If you look at the parts in parentheses.
Is it?
If you look at the part in parentheses, that is the actual cut.
Okay.
Some of it's been restructured to provide more support.
Okay.
The actual part in the parentheses is the cut, and it adds up to 4.0.
Okay. My last comment is just I hate having these points. I mean, I like full-time teachers that are basically with us for the entire day. That are our employees, not people coming in for an hour here, 2 hours there. It never made sense to me. I think we went through this a year ago. It doesn't make sense to me now. It didn't make sense to me a year ago. So
I concur. I like full-time people too.
Any other questions for Mr. Emerald? Any public questions, Mr. Emerald? Thank you. Mr. Littlefield, welcome aboard.
Good evening, everyone. I was going to try to be brief tonight in order to make it back to introduce Mr. Underwood to our parent group, but I'm going to have to take care of business quickly here, and then join parents at the auditorium at the high school. I will try to be brief. It's a difficult position to be in here tonight. I've had so many different types of budget presentations to the school committee, different years where I've been asked to explain to the committee what do we feel we really need in order to be the school that we really want to be. I've been asked to make presentations. What can you live with? And I've had presentations where, okay, this is your X amount of money. What are you going to spend it on? So tonight is kind of a hybrid of all of those. I've been asked to outline key initiatives going on at the high school. Like my brothers and sisters at the elementary, we continue to transition to the Common Core state standards. We also are looking to implement the next generation science standards, and we're excited about that. Kathleen Beebe, our science chair, is here, and she's been leading the effort there. We will continue our efforts, and our efforts have really paid off to implement literacy across the curriculum. You'll see in our NECAP scores that our reading scores have never been higher. If I were to make a scientific guess as to that reason, our current junior class, those that were tested in October, have had their teachers, all of their teachers, regardless of the discipline, have had a reading student learning objective for each of the 3 years that our students have been at Portsmouth High School. And we will continue those efforts as all of our teachers, whether they be family and consumer science or physical education or science, they are teachers of reading. We continue, and we're excited about our STEAM initiative. When last I was, 2 presentations ago, we talked about, I think I have a slide on that. Yes, I do. The STEAM Scholar Certificate and envisioning what we would do for our top-notch students to prepare them for post-secondary education and all of the high-level courses that they would take in science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics. We've also had some exciting developments in the last couple of weeks, having conversations with the Rhode Island Department of Education about the prospect of being one of their pilot programs of actually a career and technical education program in engineering technology. And we've been researching different programs from around the country, and we've been brainstorming what kind of course of study those students would take in order to complete a course of study that would be leading toward a certificate in engineering technology. So we're very excited about the prospect. We had a meeting with the Rhode Island Department of Education, get snowed out, and we look forward to a rescheduled meeting with them to talk about this exciting initiative. On instruction, we have donated a great deal of our time. Just about all of our Late Start Wednesday professional development periods have been dedicated to the topic of developing and using common formative assessments. Mr. Amaral spoke the truth, as he always does, when he said that we're certainly assessing our kids in a healthy fashion. Sometimes it's even perhaps a more than healthy fashion. But a formative assessment is one that a classroom teacher uses to gauge the level of understanding of their students, not to measure them, not to decide who moves on and who gets an A and who gets a C, but to determine what do my students understand right now, and do I need to make any kind of modifications in my instruction? Do I need to differentiate? How can I better serve my students? And so we've done a lot of work on our Late Start Wednesdays on formative assessments. We continue to infuse technology. We've gone live with our BYOD policy, and we've got students bringing all kinds of devices to school, and classroom teachers are collaborating on ways that they might take advantage of students having their own devices in their class in order to improve learning. We've got now, through the tremendous support of our IT staff and Mr. Davidson's staff, we've got smart classrooms throughout Portsmouth High School with interactive overhead projectors and the appropriate whiteboards, so that teachers are able to utilize this technology in their instruction. And our response to intervention program has really made great strides This year, I want to give my assistant principal, Colleen Larson, a great amount of credit for leading the charge here, where we're developing strategies to identify our struggling learners and to support them in any way that we can. On assessment, we too are preparing for the next generation of assessments. The park, Portsmouth High, is a park field test site in mathematics this spring. That's going to be a paper and pencil test for us. We are not one of the schools that will be relied on to administer that using technology. As has been so much a part of our program, Senior Project continues to be the capstone of a Portsmouth High School student's education. And our Senior Project coordinators and committee are always working with our seniors as they work independently throughout their senior year to prove that they are ready to receive a Portsmouth High diploma. We have all of our teachers constantly monitoring their students' progress because all of our teachers have established student learning objectives, either in mathematics or reading or writing, and some have a reading SLO and a content-specific SLO. But they're using their assessments to monitor the students' progress there. And we just continue to use all of our assessments, whether they be our SAT scores or our kneecap scores or our Scantron scores, to make sure that we are on top of our students' progress. I just couldn't leave here tonight without saying that a key initiative at Portsmouth High School is to make sure that every one of our students is qualified to receive a Regents-approved high school diploma. In order to do that, they must complete all of their course credits, they must complete their senior project to an acceptable standard, and they must also demonstrate proficiency in reading and in mathematics. You can see here the statistics right now. This is as of today with the class of 2014, where we had 260 of 262 of our current seniors are eligible to receive their diploma based on their reading proficiency. 242 demonstrated proficiency in math. Recently, we administered one of the alternate tests, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. We had 6 of our seniors get an acceptable score there. They are now qualified to receive a diploma. We had, and I just learned this afternoon after I had already sent my slides in, that we had another one of our seniors accepted to a 4-year college. And so by virtue of that acceptance, they are eligible to receive a diploma. We still have 13 seniors that we are working with right now. We had their third and final kneecap session this morning, where all 13 of those seniors were there taking a special session of math kneecap under the auspices of a representative from the Rhode Island Department of Education, who was in the room with our students, monitoring the way that we were administering the test. One of my seniors, who has a special place in my heart, was in tears working on his math kneecap today, and yet stayed with it for 3 hours, problem by problem. A great testament to our staff. Not so great a testament to the idea of high-stakes testing. And if I could just capture that moment and share it with everyone, maybe the powers that be would have a different view of high-stakes testing and its role in secondary education. Our class of 2015 has 220 members. 215 are now eligible in reading. 189 are eligible in math based on their NECAP scores. We immediately got all those who were not yet proficient and administered another session of the ASVAB test. 20 of those students scored high enough to be immediately eligible to receive a diploma, leaving 11 juniors, and we will work with all 11 of those juniors as we are working with all 13 of those seniors to make sure that they've demonstrated proficiency to a level that they will be ready to receive a Regents approved diploma. I just also wanted to include, and if you look at the proposed budget, it may have been confusing, a tad confusing, because it may look a little different from the two that you received last night and tonight. But we had talked. We had had quite a number of conversations about our athletic department and our coaches and what we felt our student athletes deserved at Portsmouth High School. And certainly one of my stated goals was to have a fully funded athletic program, to include fully funded swim and volleyball, so that they don't rely on bake sales in order to fund their seasons. We also, I presented data that showed that many of our coaching salaries were not commensurate with our comparable schools. So I did want our budget to reflect what our athletic budget would have looked like, and then you can also see what the proposed budget looks like now. But I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that tonight. This is our enrollment. I didn't know until tonight that Mr. Amaral was going to make the statement. They are the largest school in the district. I shall go to work tomorrow to recruit 7 more students to enroll at Portsmouth High next year. You can see that we are about to graduate 262 members of the 12th grade class, and it looks like we will be welcoming right around 229 students in the 9th grade class, which will reflect a slight dip in our enrollment. A dip in enrollment like that at a high school, it can be may look as though it would be very simple to cut some teachers because we have 43 less students. If only the high school scheduled itself the way that an elementary school did, where you took a cohort of kids and said, you go with this teacher. But our kids are taking French classes and computer classes and music classes that make it far more difficult to schedule. So this is our budget overview. There is that column on the right that was left in not by me but by administration as well. Just to show that this is what we had talked about earlier in the year, but we recognize the realities that face us now. And so going through that, the bottom line is relatively unchanged. There are a couple of shifts around back and forth that I'll talk about in a second. Now, the district recommended reductions that were presented to me included 3.1 FTEs to be reduced at the high school, and I would just I thought that I would just talk about what the impact of those cuts would be. One was a recommendation to eliminate a special education teacher. We would accommodate that cut by scheduling fewer sections of co-taught classes. So there would be fewer opportunities for our special ed students to be in a classroom, not only with their content teacher, but with a special educator. Making it a 0.4 cut in modern language, we would accommodate by in many cases eliminating honors and academic level and blending those levels together so that they're not multiple sections, and then challenge the teachers to differentiate properly to make sure that all the students in that class were properly challenged. The social studies 0.5 FTE indicates that we currently have a teacher, a social studies teacher, who is on a paid sabbatical leave. She is scheduled to return. We have a first-year teacher who is in her stead for this year. So that 0.5 represents the half pay for the sabbatical leave. We would accommodate the 0.2 reduction in health and PE by having slightly larger PE classes. It does make it difficult because our teachers don't just teach physical education. They are also responsible for teaching the health curriculum in a classroom setting. So while the contractual limit on physical education classes is 30 students, and our teachers are able to accommodate those up to 30 students in a PE class, it does raise challenges when you actually have them in a classroom and you're trying to instruct them in some of the more delicate subjects that we cover in our health curriculum. But with that cut, that's how we would make the accommodation. It was recommended by administration that we eliminate a 1.0 food and nutrition teacher. We call him a family and consumer science teacher. We would accommodate that cut by eliminating our courses in culinary, design and fashion, and interior design programs. That, quite frankly, would not be my recommendation. I would rather, if given the charge to make reductions in my staff, I would really rather try to look at our course subscriptions and find out where we could make reductions without reducing choices for students, rather than to unilaterally eliminate an entire program. Currently, that teacher who that 1.0 cut represents currently has 106 students in her sections. And truth be told, if I wanted to meet all of the course requests that I have in family and consumer science, I would actually be asking not for a 1.0 cut. I'd be asking for about a 0.6 or a 0.8 increase. It's one of the things that's very special about Portsmouth High School is that our family and consumer science courses are extremely popular. But this is how we would accommodate that cut. Controllable expenses. In our proposed budget, our materials and textbooks are essentially balanced with some slight moving back and forth to accommodate some of our new courses. We're actually not asking Mr. Amaral for an increase in art supplies because we invested in a pug mill last year with Ms. Copeland's support, and so we're able to recycle a great deal of our clay, and that's proven to be a really good investment.
You know, this is actually a really good thing. I mean, if they're going through that much clay at the middle school, it might end up being a money-saving issue to have that clay recycler, but they end up taking they just get one chunk and they do a pinch pot, right? They don't do the wheel, so it's probably not as much.
It's good.
I think that's for another session when the gravity isn't so, so.
I apologize
Please
for my levity. That's it for my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Mr. Littlefield,
yes,
how essential do you feel department chair positions are to the operation of the high school? And if you could speak to the committee about that.
Absolutely essential. The way they are right now, which is I've been the principal for 16 years. I've enjoyed the services of some outstanding department chairs. They perform a great role at our school. But as Mr. Amaral said, not the least of which is their role as in teacher supervision and evaluation. And I think that I can look over my last 16 years and just I'm so thankful for the role that my department chairs have had in the development of my teachers, both young and experienced. I also know the amount of time that they put in to that evaluative role, and if they're not going to be in the evaluative role, then it would be time to look at making some changes in our expectations for our department chairs.
Terry?
When you consolidate an honors class and an academic class, what does that do to the student's transcript that was going to take an honors class?
Students would make an agreement, sort of sign a contract at the beginning of the course. I am going to strive for honors credit in this course. Then the teacher would properly differentiate to say what needs to be done in this course in order to achieve honors credit. And if you do that, then your transcript would reflect that you took that course at the honors level.
Okay.
So there's a lot of talk among parents and a lot of misunderstanding as to, and I know you're not finalized on your sessions and you're still working as to what the final makeup will be. Is there honors in U.S. history? Is there honors in grade 12 English?
There's not honors in grade 12 English.
And we haven't had that for 2 years.
We phased that out several years ago. It's a discussion that we've had for years, where we've instituted advanced placement courses and advanced placement choices.
But could you lend clarity to what you're thinking right now relative to the other honors programs?
The two that we had planned on phasing out this year would be the honors level in English 11, the honors level in United States history. I don't think that we did a very good job of communicating that, and so we've had our counselors take course requests for honors United States history and honors English 11. So we have all those records, and we're just formulating all that data now. I would say going into 2014-15, we will be running some sections of honors level for those 11th graders. And we'll continue to have the discussion of whether or not that's appropriate when you have an advanced placement choice in that particular course.
Very good. Other questions? Emily? Oh, I'm sorry, Terry.
I wanted to come back to the food and nutrition and the so. Is it the same teacher that teaches design and fashion in all three of those? I'm confused.
Yes, in family consumer science, they are semester-long courses. So she essentially teaches 10 courses over the course of the year, 5 in the first semester, 5 in the second semester, and some of those sections are not culinary. Some of them are fashion and design and interior design.
And are they all equally popular?
We turned kids away this year when we built our master schedule. Our subscriptions surpassed our seats.
Yeah.
And when we do that, we give preference to juniors and seniors, and we tell our freshmen and sophomores, you'll have another chance to take the course.
So if they take food and nutrition, do they have to take design and fashion and interior design? Is that like a whole package, or?
No, they don't. It's not.
one?
No, it's not a package, and it's not a recognized career tech path the way we have right now in our television production and our child development course, where there's a path that you take toward a certificate. These are strictly exploratory electives.
And you think you could come up with that same reduction, kind of doing your wizard's work over your schedule?
I think we can.
Emily?
That was my question.
All right.
And if you were to put any one thing back, I mean, assuming that the wizard's work is kind of taken aside, is there one here that you think is most critical?
This is where you pin me down, Ms. Copeland, and you say, all right, now, what's not important? So, all right.
No, I mean, I'm really thinking, what do you hate to see go the most?
Well, I would hate to see our family consumer science program go, because I know how well it serves our kids. I know that those are truly, especially in our culinary program, they're truly heterogeneously grouped classes where you have honors level students planning meals with students who struggle, and it's just tremendous to see a team of 5 working in a kitchen to plan a meal, and also study the nutrition and read articles about food supply, etc., and then actually prepare the meals.
Any other questions? All right, I actually believe that, we are focused now on FY15, but there is an absolute disconnect between what has been presented from the principals to this committee and the reality of our next 3-year financial forecast. That whatever we're doing this year only has to be focused again on savings next year. And I think that a lot of our presentations, and when we start breaking into point 2s and point 4s and this cobbled together idea of where we're headed with elements of our curriculum, it does not take into account the gravity of the situation where our schools stand now and in 3 years. Mr. Dioro has put forth forecasts that show that we're using surplus funds to backfill a $1.1 million deficit this year, for FY15, I'm sorry, and subsequent deficits that range in $921,000 over $1.6 million, and by FY18, $1.4 million. I respect, as I said to Liz and Lisa yesterday, your advocacy for your programming, your advocacy for your peers, but it is incredibly sobering to sit on this committee, and I've done this for a number of years, and unless we bring revenue to this district, we must be planning for a nominal increase from the town. I did receive word this afternoon that a bill will be put forth in the legislature to stop our cut in state aid funding, but I don't have a great deal of, I don't believe the prospects for that are strong. That being said, it has to be said. And it has to be, I consider our principals officers of this district. And I would just hope that you understand the position we are in as we focus on the restrictions that we have with the ability to actually increase the levy of taxation on our residents on one side, and then the obstacles of state aid reduction and a tax levy cap on the other side. That all being said, I do have some questions relative to, and I don't, I actually believe that we should free you to have your sessions and develop your coursework. How are you progressing on the 5 courses that you had presented to us? And will you still be recommending that we approve all the recommended courses that you put forth to us about a month ago? Or do you know yet?
Well, at risk of being premature, I would say there's a good chance that four of the 5. I know certainly one had an overwhelming response.
Okay.
A response we weren't quite prepared.
The math class.
For. No.
No. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Right. All right.
But we are. We are just about. We have about 92% of our subscriptions in our course registration forms. My counselors are working diligently. Melissa Bellotti is here tonight. She can attest to the fact that we're we want our numbers to be as accurate as possible. It's critical that we know the enrollment for all of our courses, and we want our kids and their parents to be making those choices. They're not always as prompt as we want in bringing those choices in. But we're about 92% right now. So a day from now, or 2 days from now, I think that we would be ready to start to make some projections.
So while we respect your advocacy for variety, I think that we're getting to the stage right now that we need some kind of a baseline that says what is core to our programming. And when we add classes that are so well subscribed, like engineering, unfortunately, sometimes that may mean we have to make choices. Now, if this is 1 year of potentially 2 years of realigning curriculum, would you still stand by the Family Consumer Sciences recommendation that you keep it? Because at some point in time, there is another shoe to drop. It may not be as large as 12 FTEs, but there's certainly another shoe. And that is my concern.
I'd be happy to have that conversation. I'd welcome that. And I think that I could provide some valuable input to that conversation. As someone,
Well, we've been having this conversation for about 3 months at the top line level. So, and I know this conversation has been had at the administrative level. So the question is at some point in time, we have to bring a budget over to the town hall by March 25th that actually not only focuses on the present, but aligns us such that we can hit our trajectory in FY16 and FY17. That's our sobering reality.
I completely understand that. And my presentation tonight was in response to a reality that was presented to me. And I came before you tonight to give you my honest response to that presentation and to answer any questions that you might have about our program.
So we carried over last year an extra FTE in math, which isn't an extra, but I mean we used it wisely, I'm sure. Do we we still, as our senior population declines, as we have a drop in 30 individuals, as you know you're sessioning better. I mean, what I don't want to see is greater fragmentation of full-time employees. I mean, it's the same thing I said to Mr. Emerald. I mean, these points, whatever, start adding up to it, a very confusing mix.
There aren't many times that I've come in front of this committee and asked for a partial addition to my faculty. It's because I share your sentiment that I want total complete buy-in by members of my faculty. So I try to avoid fragments whenever I can.
Okay.
Sometimes it's difficult.
I just think we need to be a little careful before we start talking about, I mean, I don't know what those discussions have been, but the food and nutrition or the design and fashion and the culinary programs, I mean, they're obviously serving students. When I was over at Hathaway in the kindergarten, they had, I think it was a group of students and the child, and I don't know the name of the course, but they were down because they were thinking about elementary education.
That's our early childhood education program, and those kids graduate with University of Rhode Island credit.
Right, and so, I mean, I just want to point out, not everybody's going to be an engineer. I think STEAM's great, but I do think there's a real argument to be had to have other options as well. So I understand the budget things, but what I heard Mr. Littlefield say was that if the issue here is to be able to reduce costs with an FTE, there may one full-time equivalent. There may be other ways to do it than by eliminating diversity, and I think diversity is pretty good.
But by going to diversity, what you may be doing is increasing the class size in sessioning, and that may have a negative impact as well. I mean, so I think I feel for the problem set that you have to go through to actually solve this. If there is a discussion, I think that discussion should happen immediately, because the reality is that, we should have clarity on exactly where we're headed before we submit our budget or try to approve our budget. Fred?
If I understand you suggest we need sustainable curriculum in terms of going forward. If we can't sustain the culinary, fashion design, and interior, then we have to look at it.
Well, we have choices. We have an engineering program. We're trying to ramp up programming. We're trying to make investments. That all has a cost, and that cost has to basically go to the strategic plan, and the strategic plan has to basically tell us what is core.
Right,
and unfortunately, we just can't be always what we were in the past.
Well, that's what I thought you said.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, it's cathartic.
I feel the same way.
Any other questions, Ms. Littlefield? Thank you. Thank you for, supporting Mr. Underwood. I think that was a fabulous event.
I don't mean to be rude, but I'm going to leave and join everybody else.
Please do. Yep.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Why don't we just pause for a second, and is there administration would like to weigh in on anything that has been said or done, or?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Item number D is being, I'll move it to our meeting in March. I did not receive what was promised of me, so. I take a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry. Don, I'm sorry.
He's made it all this time. He did.
Mr. Davidson seconded that motion.
Well, Chris.
That's your cue. Make it 1 minute.
No, it's not. I apologize.
It's okay.
So what do you want?
I'll go right to the budget part. I'll just touch on the ones that we've had an increase or a decrease in. Rubbish removal, we've taken a $2,500 reduction. Our contract ends in November, and I'm going to be working with the town to see how we can combine some of our efforts. I'm still waiting to see when the town's contract ends. Snow plowing, our current spending is 40.
Just on our food program with Chartwells, I mean, can some of this be brought together possibly in that same consortium?
Are you referring to like recycling efforts and that type of thing? Or?
No, well, I mean, it's all, but we have an East Bay consortium.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Should we expand beyond just the town for rubbish removal? We can certainly take that back, absolutely.
I mean, it's just if we can have leverage against Waste Management or whoever the provider, A1 or whomever, Patriot.
We will look into it.
Yeah, we'll have to find out when contracts expire and how we can align that.
That's probably the biggest problem, is they expire at different times.
Yeah.
And maybe we cobble, so we can, I mean, we did that in busing, a couple of years back, that we made sure we were aligned so we could actually.
Yeah, we'll take that as an action item.
Okay, snow plowing, our current spending is at $43,438, or $8,400 over budget. So we're asking for a $5,000 increase next year and hoping for good weather. Groundskeeping, we're a $1,000 reduction. Further reductions will be possible because of the T3. Want to wait to see where that goes, and that can be adjusted. That will also tie into the water account as well.
The contract we signed, which was a multi-year last year?
We wrote it up so that we can take the turf field out.
Great, okay, thank you.
Rodent and pest control, a $500 reduction. We're looking this year, my goal was to implement the integrated pest management program. Maintenance and repair, no change. Vehicle repair, $1,000 reduction. We got a new van coming hopefully in a couple weeks. Maintenance repair, HVAC, I'm asking for $5,500 more. Just for general knowledge, our newest boiler is 49 years old, and our oldest boiler is 63 years old. We've been very lucky over the past 3 years with major repairs being covered by insurance claims. I'm not sure how long we can continue.
Our newest boilers were at the Elmhurst School. They were like brand new. I'm sure the contractor took them out and sold them.
It's like $1 million.
We have some numbers in the RGB report. High school, I think, is like $1.8 million.
Have you seen them?
Our water,
$1 million of private donation. No donation.
Portsmouth Water has advised us an increase this year of 12% and next year 12%. That's the increase you see in that line item. The sewage rates increased to $1,200. We're doing a yearly pumping of all of our age systems to extend the life. Alarm and fire safety, Melville was added this year and Hathaway will be added next year for fire suppression, sprinkler testing. Natural gas, we signed a new contract. I'm trying to keep it at a level funding right now because we're over budget this year at this time of the year based on the cold weather. I'm not really sure where we'll be next year, but Chris and I are going to look at that budget and see what we can do with that one. As a matter of fact, the natural gas and the electric contracts are both fairly new, and we work with the Rhode Island Association of School Committees on those bids. Those are a lot of schools put together. Fuel oil in Hathaway, we're looking for a $5,000 increase. I don't see the price of oil going down any next year. Electricity, that's our big one. We're looking for an $18,000, $500 reduction. The new rates are for 1213 through 1215. We're now paying $0.700 per kilowatt, which is pretty good. So we're locked into that for 2 more years. Custodial supplies, I'm looking for $4,500 and more money to start replacing older equipment with newer technology. There's technology out there that you can strip the floors without buying the chemical, and that chemical is probably one of the worst chemicals we have in our schools, the stripper. And the new machines do not require a stripper at all. I'm also looking to reduce, every time you go green, it costs you money. Paper towels are very expensive. We've experimented at the high school and the middle school with electric hand dryers in the bathrooms. They're working very well, so we're going to go more toward that direction. Furniture and fixtures, we reduced it to $4,900 to reflect the anticipated demands of the admin building over the next year. We don't need a lot there, so we've cut some money out. Any questions on that part?
Anyone? No?
Those guys had it hard. This is easy. Can't see that. We have 16 custodians, 3 maintenance, and we added an assistant this year, Ann Burns. She does virtual high school and registration half the time and helps me and FS Direct the other half. We also have 1 less custodian than we had last year at the high school. We have a reduction of 1 from last year.
Are you proposing to fill it or no?
No.
Is that in the budget this year or?
So I think what Mr. Davidson's saying is the year we're in is 1 less than last year, and he's proposing to keep it steady for next year.
I get you. Before you go to capital, I just want to commend your entire team.
Thank you.
They're extraordinary.
They do a great job.
They are.
Thank you. The maintenance department works very well with the custodians at all the schools, and we also work around all the free classroom times when the kids aren't there. We jump on them. It's tough to do, but the schools work very well with us. We know whenever there's a half an hour free time, that's where we go. Projects for next year. Electrical panel upgrades at the middle school in Melville. KMC controls in classrooms at the high school and the middle school. KMC controls. Right now, we currently have KMC controls in every school monitoring boilers. The Melville school is completely monitored. The high school is about almost half. Middle school is about half. A and B wing is completely monitored, and we've had less complaints than we've ever had, especially at the middle school. That's been a tough school. But we're getting everything back to working the way it should be working. The indoor air quality is much better than it's been. We also monitor the freezers at the high school, the emergency generators, the server rooms, and classrooms we're working on now. So I'd like to have some more money. It costs about $1,000 to do a classroom. A walkway in the playground at Melville. Right now, to get to the little kids' playground, you have to go through the gravel in the back. We want to put a walkway there and connect the walkway in the front to the playground so the wheelchairs can get in there.
Go ahead.
New carpet in the Learning Center at the middle school. New LED lighting at the high school. That is part of a, I know Fred had asked before about if we've done an energy audit. We did one in 2010 with National Grid, and we pick away at the low-hanging fruit, what we have money for. So this will be the last school for outdoor lighting. Last year we did the Hathaway, Melville, and the middle school.
Converting lighting to LED, does that require recabling? So you can just swap out?
We keep the same pole, put a new head on.
So that's always something to look at for the whole system.
Playground barriers. I originally put a lot more money in there, but knowing where we're going, I reduced it to just trying to cover the bottom half to keep the mulch in the playgrounds so it doesn't all go out into the grass. And I kind of had a little bit of money left over, so I did cabling and electrical contingency, split it up. It's $1,500. It doesn't look like a lot because we usually do like $350, but we've got a lot in the works. We're going to do Hathaway Elementary School this summer. We got the T3 coming up, which is going to keep us busy. Plus, we've got money from previous warrant years that we're trying to use up, so there's only so much time.
The only thing I'd like to add back in is the soil at Melville. So we realize that somewhere in the budget that there's an expense to that.
Okay.
Whether that expense may be taken in kind from T3 or what have you, I mean, I think that we should have it in here anyhow, just so we can have a mark.
Okay, we'll take
We
that
did talk
again.
about it
Yeah,
today.
we did.
We're putting a plan together for 3 phases.
Good.
I haven't had a lot of luck with O'Day Engineering, so I have got another company that's going to give me a price on
You're
coming
killing
up.
us. You're killing us. The middle school.
Moisture analysis in the middle school. It's TBS Services. Studio J recommended them. They're a building envelope specialist, so they're going to give me a price on coming up. We also are I'm pretty close to getting ready to hand out 2 drafts of an RFP to the CIP group on the total facilities and updating a 5-year plan. I've got a couple drafts to look at to see how we want to go with those. And I'd like to know in those, we'll probably look at some type of overall heating, but maybe conditioning for certain parts of schools as well. That's it.
Thank you. I think, one thing, you'll probably want that carpet sooner than later.
Well, do you mind if I?
Yeah, please.
Mr. Davidson, thank you. With regards to the carpet, can you give me a little history? I mean, has the school department over the years, have we tried to stay on a schedule between all our buildings really as far as replacing carpet so much a year? Obviously, we can't do everything in 1 year, so I mean, have we had a schedule in the past? Did we fall off that schedule?
Yes, we did have a schedule.
And how far behind are we?
I think at the middle school we're two learning centers down. There's one original for the school, and then there's one that's due to be replaced. So I think we're 2 down. The trouble was when I started, nobody told me there was a schedule.
And the high school?
I don't think really no plan. I mean, in the 5-year plan, we had put down a schedule together up there, but as of right now, we don't have it.
Yeah, maybe that's just the library.
Okay.
At the 2 elementaries, we've taken care of all the hallways, and we've tackled classrooms at Hathaway and some classrooms at Melville.
Okay. Your capital request comes out to 100,000. Were you instructed to not exceed 100,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Emerald sitting here. I'd still like to put in a plug for trying out tile at the middle school. Just trying it in the learning center if there is a group of teachers that want it as opposed to carpet because of the moisture problem. And I know, we're doing the engineering study, but even just as an interim measure, might be a good experiment.
I don't disagree. It's tremendously more expensive, right?
No, it's real close.
Yeah.
I think the squared carpets were the ones that were much more expensive.
Oh, that's not what you're talking
No,
about.
just tile.
Oh, tile.
The only thing we really don't know is that we may be told that we have to seal that floor first.
Right.
Well, and you have height issues.
Yeah, about the track.
So, I mean, do we build up that floor and, that may take us down the
I think we really
rabbit
need to
hole.
add something to some of the movable partitions, like a new strip along the bottom. Those have worn out over time.
Right. Okay. John Harrelson? Yes. Anyone else? Questions?
No, it's very good.
Thank you, Don.
I guess I give up. Don, was that carpeting, that's one learning center? 14?
One learning center.
4 classrooms.
We may want to look at potentially adding a couple items so that when we do go to a CIP meeting, we can, do a little bartering. I mean, I don't want people to believe that, our needs are, in the capital side, I think we need to actually demonstrate, maybe there's another parallel document that says we have millions of dollars that could go into the schools.
Oh, yeah, I mean, part of the thinking that Mr. Davidson and I talked about was, one, going out to RFP for a facilities basically review. That's about to happen. So before we start investing in places, let's wait and hear back where the expert thinks we need to invest. And the second thing is, we have a tremendous amount of projects that are going to kick off in just a few months, and I don't want to overwhelm the staff as well, and I don't want to spend money unwisely. So that was the thinking.
Yep.
We also have probably 2,000 projects already approved with the money allocated to it.
Right, despite Hathaway and potentially T3, there are hundreds of thousands of dollars of other projects that are in process as we speak that we review with the capital committee.
Andrew's not here, so motion for adjournment?
Before we adjourn, I just want either Don or Chris just to give us an update. The Hathaway RFP has been published. The Hathaway RFP. And maybe you could come up because it's fairly pertinent.
Hathaway was published last week for 2 days. We had the pre-bid bidding was yesterday.
How many
5 contractors show up. Bids are due in March 18th.
And is Phil fairly confident?
Yeah. We had some very positive things. We had some, there's no asbestos problems there. We thought we might have some because there's hard plaster behind the walls, but that was tested and it's okay. And we thought we would have to take out a lot of plaster because you have double ceilings over there. Instead of just fixing a ceiling, you drop the suspended ceiling, so you've got a plaster ceiling above it. And our distance is such that we don't need double heads. So there's some good money savings right there.
And we did the water work last year.
Brought it in, so it's going to be a lot less. They just got to bring it from the telephone pole to the building.
And there's no gas.
I'm working with a gas company. There's 2 ways they can bring it in, near the gym or come up over the hill from down below. They're looking at where they get the most customers.
And are we contemplating seeing if that can be in parallel?
Yeah. All right. The goal there would be to have 1 boiler room.
Right.
In the 2-story part, you do away with the other boiler room. All you need is like a 40-foot section of pipe. That's all you need.
Is that in the RFP?
No, not that part.
All right.
I don't know if they're going to get the gas there yet. If they don't get enough customers, they don't want to prepare.
Anything special in the RFP that wasn't? I mean, you gave us the RFP last year.
Yep.
Right. Good.
The option is the generator. The generator would sit right out near that little dock near the gym. That's the closest to the electrical service.
What's our confidence level about, we've been budgeting $750, how are we feeling about that number?
I think last time we had Phil Conti in, they thought it would be higher than that, in the $800,000 range, but given your walkthroughs and some of these other savings, I don't know at this point how that matches, but the $750 I think was a number from 3-4 years ago, so the normal inflation, he thought that would have gone up some.
What was the final total for Melville? That bid actually came below 750 though.
Melville,
we hit the ledge. I don't remember.
Right. Well, and then we had the change order.
Yes. Yeah.
Or change orders.
And we did save quite a bit on the removal of the oil tank.
and we saved also a lot of money on hauling away that big stone because of Quid's construction let them dump it behind their place. They had 36 truckloads. So